Hey there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Ever since the original Star Wars film was created, Lucasfilm has been experimenting with almost every narrative out there. They've done the story of the reluctant rebel becoming politically awakened, the reformed bounty hunter fighting for a peaceful retirement, the old man in the desert. There have also been war films and novels, heist films, forbidden love between siblings story.
And I was left with shame and with consequence.
Young adult novels, zombie tales, even anime and political dramas. I've always said that the strength of Star Wars lies not in its individual stories or characters, but in the sheer amount of content, the sheer amount of artists and writers who have contributed to this universe. We have so much information, so many different stories that this universe has come alive on its own. I mean, that's why I never get hysterical over things I don't like in the Star Wars universe, because for me, Star Wars exists here in my mind, and it's already way too concrete for anyone to take away from me. And, you know, when you're confident about something, you don't have fear. And when you don't have fear, you don't have that hatred and anger. Which honestly is becoming too much of a norm in discussions about Star Wars. I saw that same hatred make people miss out on the Andor TV series, which I felt like was one of the best shows Star Wars ever created, just it was released in the wrong time. And I hope that same hatred doesn't prevent people from seeing the Ahsoka series. And don't take it from me, I don't do reviews on shows until the end for this reason, and don't listen to all those influencers out there. Check out the show for yourself, develop your own opinion. Don't let others develop it for you. Anyway, we were talking about all different types of narratives, but the classic Star Wars story will always be about a master and apprentice. That is the core of what Star Wars is. The teacher passing on their experience and skills to the next generation, as Yoda did for Dooku, and as Dooku did for Qui-Gon, as Qui-Gon did for Obi-Wan, as Obi-Wan did for Anakin, and as Anakin would do for Ahsoka. And now Ahsoka, despite all odds, will be carrying on this tradition by passing her knowledge to a very surprising apprentice, Sabine Wren. Sabine Wren is unorthodox not because she's a Mandalorian or that she's way older than the standard Jedi age for recruitment. It's not her spotty past history as a bounty hunter or as an inventor of a truly terrifying superweapon. Instead, it has everything to do with her lack of Force abilities and innate talent. And yes, in the trailers for Ahsoka, like in the days leading up to the show, it was alarming seeing Sabine being trained by Ahsoka, because I, like a lot of people, was worried that they were going to make a character who obviously wasn't Force sensitive now some powerful Force being. But no, that's not what Filoni did. Instead, Sabine Wren is objectively terrible at the Force, which leads to a constant stream of deadpan insults from Professor Hu Yang.
I see you still remember the basics.
Enough to get by?
Barely.
I never had the talent, the abilities. Not like Ezra.
That much is true.
And thank God Hondo's pirates didn't dismantle him. He's a gem. Having Sabine as Ahsoka's apprentice is genius for a lot of different reasons, and I think this is probably one of the most important things to happen in Star Wars for a while. I know a lot of people haven't seen Rebels, and it's honestly not Filoni's best work, but don't worry, I've seen it multiple times, and let me tell you, Filoni has planned this all along. And to me, that's a really good step in the right direction for Disney, who's been kind of struggling ever since the sequels launched. One of the biggest issues with the sequel trilogy, as most of you know, was just how disjointed the story was. You originally had 3 different creators tagged to 3 different films, and they started filming without actually coming up with a larger overarching story. Now, Dave Filoni just doesn't have the technical skills or the filmmaking talent of other creators like J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, Tony Gilroy, Jon Favreau. He simply doesn't have the experience, and that's because he comes from animation, which, let's be honest, is completely different from making a live-action film. But Dave Filoni, unlike these other directors I mentioned, is 100% committed to Star Wars. He's a company man, and so unlike these other guys, he's created a huge roadmap for content. I mean, he most likely knows where all of the characters in the Ahsoka series are going to go, and he's probably known this for a long time. For those of you who think Sabine Wren becoming Ahsoka's apprentice is random, just look at this last scene of Rebels, or all the little hints that detailed that Sabine Wren was going to be destined for this role at a later date. We actually covered this in one of our last videos where we kind of detailed her tragic past, but basically Sabine Wren has always acted like how a Jedi should. Just like how Ahsoka, despite leaving the Jedi Order, still behaved exactly as a Jedi should. If you take a look at the Jedi lineage that Ahsoka belongs to, you'll notice that everyone from Yoda to her was kind of unorthodox. Yoda was one of the strangest and most long-lived masters in Jedi history. His way of speech was odd, as was his leadership style. Dooku would actually reject the Jedi way, seeing that they had become corrupted and inefficient, and he would become the leader of the Separatist movement. Qui-Gon Jinn would find the Chosen One and learn how to become one with the Force. He actually ends up rejecting a seat on the High Council. Obi-Wan Kenobi was one of the few survivors of Order 66, and he had to struggle and forget all that he had known about the Jedi and the Force to become something even more. And Anakin, well, Anakin was the Chosen One, and all the rules were broken to let him join the Jedi Order, and he would proceed to break all the rules eventually while in the Order. And finally, we have young Ahsoka. We've looked at how different her fighting style is in a previous video, but perhaps what's even more interesting is the life she chooses after being kicked out of the Jedi Order. You see, Ahsoka had an opportunity to come back to the Jedi, and she refuses. And unlike other Jedi who have walked away from the order and structure of the Jedi Temple, Ahsoka never falls to the dark side. Instead, she becomes Ashla, the pure embodiment of light, proof that the Jedi were not only wrong about her, but that there was always another way, as we'll see with Sabine, I'm sure. And I think Ahsoka, despite being a wise and sage-like character at this point in her life, still holds a huge grudge against the Jedi, somewhere back in her mind. And although the Jedi are no longer around, Professor Huyang, the 25,000-year-old droid with all that Jedi history and knowledge stored in his head, serves as a really good proxy. As a matter of fact, he's kind of the perfect representation of what the Jedi were, a machine that was cold and unfeeling, that kicked a young Ahsoka out of the Order. He had masters like Yoda, Plo Koon, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who spent countless hours training, talking, and fighting alongside Ahsoka, who really did know her quality as not only a Jedi, but as a person. Yet they all abandoned her because of some planted evidence, because they were following procedure, because they were playing the political game that the Jedi had been entwined in. It is really only Anakin who followed his heart and saw that she was innocent. He was also the only one who tried to clear her name and save her. And so we can see in all of these interactions between Huyang, Ahsoka, and Sabine that there is still some of that tension there.
How about Zatoichi?
Oh no. I'm not certain Lady Wren is ready for that technique.
Thank you, Huyang.
Yes, thank you, Huyang.
Huyang only sees the more tangible qualities of Sabine Wren, and one of those qualities is just her lack of Force sensitivity. Just like with his basic sparring training, Huyang is practical for teaching the masses. But as we all know, the best way to really teach someone something is not by mass-producing that teaching, but by taking a one-on-one approach, a master and apprentice approach. And that's exactly what Ahsoka can provide to Sabine, and she'll need all the help that she can get.
Well, I discovered that according to Huyang, I'm the worst candidate to be a Jedi out of every Jedi he's ever known.
You told her that?
It's true.
It doesn't matter.
I think it does.
Agree.
Here, put this on.
Now this scene reminds me a lot of when Qui-Gon Jinn was trying to get the Jedi to accept Anakin. Despite his off-the-chart Force powers, the Jedi keep coming with buts and ifs and excuses why Anakin would fail.
He's too old.
Clouded this boy's future is.
And that's simply because he didn't fit the rules and standards levied by the Jedi Order. Ahsoka clearly objects to these rules and these standards, and that is the biggest contribution she'll give to the Star Wars saga. And I know some fans might be upset about this, but Dave Filoni clearly wants to do this, and I'm pretty sure this was George Lucas's intent all along as well. It's all about this realization that the Jedi Order for the longest time had lost its way. It was so wrapped up in procedure, prerequisites, training, and maintaining the infrastructure of the Order and the politics of the galaxy that they had lost an understanding of the pure meaning of what it meant to be a Jedi. George Lucas made the prequels as a huge criticism to the Jedi Order, and the original trilogy was extremely vague about what the Jedi were, and it was also a period of time where the Jedi had failed. So he never really had a concrete set of rules. Even the set of rules we see in the prequels were always doomed to fail. Now, I've always personally believed that a Jedi is not just a rank or an organization you join. It's a way you behave. It's how you stand up for the right things no matter what, show kindness and compassion to others. It's about how you take responsibility for your actions. It's about how you don't let your emotions take control of your decision-making process, and it's how you use rational thinking and objectivity to solve a problem and create good outcomes for as many people as possible. And I think it's the original message that George Lucas also intended to spread. It's just that now too many Star Wars fans have taken too literal of an approach to the lore. They treat it like it's dogma. If it happened once, it has to only happen that way. In this way, they remind me of, Orthodox sects of various religions who interpret the scripture or literature they have literally and want to go back like hundreds of years and live like they did in the past, instead of just understanding the underlying message that most religions have, which is be a good person. Now, Star Wars might not be a religion, but it has the same ability to influence and inspire people. And the Jedi were always supposed to represent the ideal person, goodness. And so it never mattered whether Chirrut Imwe was a Force sensitive or not. They kept that hidden on purpose in Rogue One. What did matter was that he was a hero, that he gave his life for something important that he believed in. Chirrut Imwe was an inspiration not only to fans, but even to his own friend Baze Malbus, who had become cynical and hateful of the world, who had let all the bad news and experiences around him extinguish the hope inside of him. It was Chirrut Imwe's sacrifice that allowed Baze Malbus to see color in the world, to believe once again that he as an individual had the ability to fight for something good. And so it doesn't matter if Sabine Wren is Force sensitive or not, it's her actions that count. This is the real message that Lucasfilm is trying to push, and I love it. I mean, it's this idea that no matter how terrible things seem, fighting for something, fighting for good is still worth it. And what you do on a day-to-day basis actually matters. George Lucas always called his saga a mythology, and while so many people were focused on what a Jedi should do or can't do, what they can wear, or how they should look, or how they should hold a lightsaber, they missed the entire point of Star Wars. Lucas always wanted to leave behind a legacy that especially young people could take a look at and maybe use it as a basis for their own life in case they didn't have legends or religions or other myths to follow. Lucas was a wise man, a person who was interested in anthropology, the study of human society, and I think he was able to take a step back and realize that human society, always hangs in the balance, and that there's a constant struggle between those who try to spread hatred, mistrust, who try to steal and cheat, be selfish, versus those who are compassionate or kind, who want to make the world a better place for everyone. George Lucas wanted us all to leave our moisture farm and believe that we actually have an ability to change our future and change the world around us. And so the heroes that George Lucas chooses and the heroes that Filoni now chooses, they don't have to be superpowered. They don't have to be chosen ones. They don't have to be Force sensitive. And I, for one, really like this change. Now, the other great part of having someone like Sabine Wren as Ahsoka Tano's apprentice is just how hard her journey is actually going to be. We've said a lot of nice, flowery things, but let's be realistic for a second.
I can't use the Force. I don't feel it. Not like you do.
The Force resides in all living things, even you.
This is a really nice thing to say, but I love that Sabine Wren immediately challenges her.
If that's true, then why doesn't everyone use it?
Talent is a factor.
Yes, we're not all created equally, and Sabine Wren's journey to becoming a Jedi will be a lot more difficult than Anakin's, than even someone weaker like Ezra Bridger's. But ultimate power isn't the ultimate goal of being a Jedi. That's more of a Sith ideology anyway. I mean, this is the truth I wish most of us understood. I mean, sure, there are plenty of influencers out there who have this really stupid mentality that you have to be number one, you have to be the most powerful and the best at everything. That's a complete lie, and it's a road to destruction. What really matters is running your own race, understanding your limits, and trying to break past them. You don't need to compare yourselves to others, and it's becoming harder and harder to stop yourself from doing that, especially in the social media age where everyone's posting their highlights on the internet. Unfortunately, many of us realize this truth way too late in our lives, that the greatest satisfaction comes from improving oneself and not worrying about where your starting point and end point is. So in my opinion, for this Ahsoka series to go right, Dave Filoni has to make Sabine Wren's struggle real. She can't just become super powerful by episode 4. If that happens, this story arc, this character development will fail. She will indeed be undeserving of her victories and of her success. But if things keep continuing the way they are right now, you know, with Sabine struggling greatly, getting stabbed, getting made fun of by Hu Yang, and just completely failing at all the different training tasks, if we, the audience, really see just how much effort Sabine puts into this training, then maybe she'll turn into a character that we all love and respect. Kind of like how Ahsoka Tano went from this snotty brat into this really wise and amazing character. And yeah, you know, Filoni was able to pull off that great character arc with Ahsoka, but he had more than 100 episodes to do it in. The key now is to see if he has the skills and abilities to create a character arc in just 8 episodes. And so yeah, it's a scary moment in Star Wars. A lot of things are riding on this show, but I think that's kind of exciting too.